Welcome to the podcast. Chris Graham here. We want to talk some UVA sports, basketball and football. And apologies a little bit for the inconsistency of the podcast and the videos. I'm still working on this. We get thousands of clicks on our website. We get hundreds of listens on the podcast and videos. So it's a matter of putting the time and resources to where it's best used. But we want to still try to build this up here. So any case, Virginia tomorrow night, 9:00 tip with NC State. Virginia 8th in the AP poll, 9th in the coaches poll. NC State 22nd in both polls. It'll be a game. NC State. I haven't done the game recap. I haven't done a recap because the games haven't happened yet. I haven't done a preview yet because I'll take some time. We'll get on that this evening. But NC State has always given, at least under Kevin Keatts, has given Virginia fits last few years with the style of play. And this is going to be the best NC State team Virginia's seen in quite a while. Style of play for Kevin Keatts. He's got guys who can dribble, drive, and get to the basket and score on their own. And that's the kryptonite to the UVA pack line defense, which relies on teams trying to run actions with the pick and roll and motion offenses, and that's what the pack line is designed to stop. So NC State doesn't play the way most teams play. They rely on their athletes and athleticism to get their shots, and that's why Virginia gets fits from NC State. So I'll be surprised when I look at this NC State team that they won't show that they can do that to Virginia. Virginia will be a slight favorite in this game, 5 or 6 points, but that would suggest that NC State at home would probably be a slight favorite down there in Raleigh. That shows how close these two teams likely are. I mentioned Virginia 8th in the AP, 9th in the coaches, down 5 in the coaches, down 2 in the AP this week. Probably about right. In fact, maybe Virginia a little high just when you look at the metrics and the analytics numbers. But then, you look at things like Kansas lost on Saturday, held pretty much. They held in the coaches poll, dropped 1 in the AP poll. Kansas lost 4 of its last 6. There's really no dominant team this year. Purdue's probably the closest thing to a dominant team, but they lost on Saturday. But because no one else is near their level, they still stay at number 1. Tennessee had a rough week, lost at Florida, narrowly won in a 46-43 final over Auburn, who was in the top 25 but then fell out. Tennessee dropped 3 spots in the coaches, 4 spots in the AP poll. Virginia is one of 4 teams in the ACC ranked this week, and Virginia has been now for 11 straight weeks that Virginia has been the top ranked team among ACC members. Miami is 19th in the AP, 20th in the coaches this week. I mentioned NC State's 22nd in both polls, and Clemson and Duke are tied for 24th in the coaches poll. Neither is in the AP poll. So that's where things stand as far as the polls this week. And I was thinking about this, the 9:00 tip tomorrow night. Late night for me, late night for you as well. If you're going to keep up with this game, I know people personally who aren't going to go to the game, but a 9:00 tip means an 11:00 end, and they've got early mornings during the work week. And so, games that start at 9:00, even it's their favorite team, Virginia, they don't get to watch those games. They'll tape it and try to avoid social media the next day and try to watch it when they get home, which is really hard to do. Or they'll just decide, hey, I'll just look at the score when I wake up in the morning and read Chris Graham's recap and notebook and everything else. But that's not good for those fans. And then those who are going to try to go to the game, I live 25 minutes away. I get on the interstate in Waynesboro, and I leave my house. I'm 25 minutes from JPJ, even accounting for the traffic around JPJ. I'll get home around midnight tomorrow night because post game is a little harder getting out. So I tend to write my recap and then leave around 11:30. I'll get home around midnight tomorrow night. Those who don't live close by, you live in Roanoke or Richmond or Fredericksburg, Northern Virginia, Winchester area. If you come to the game, you're getting home 1:00, right? 12:30, 1:00. That just doesn't work with people's work weeks. Unless you're retired, unless you have your own business and you can go in late Wednesday morning, those late starts don't do very well for fans. And that's not just in Virginia, that's everywhere. But it's long since past the point that college sports is a ticket-driven revenue business. It's a business that relies on the TV money. In fact, you people, my wife's one of them, has season tickets at UVA, has for years. Y'all folks who buy the tickets are paying for the privilege of being part of the background. The UVA needs the money, the other schools need the money, but they're not accommodating your schedule as far as that goes. That's the reality of it is you're paying to be part of the background. You're paying to make it look good on TV, basically, is what I mean to say there. Let's see. So I haven't done the preview yet of NC State, though I've kind of given you a basic preview. Let's look back at Saturday. Virginia struggled in the loss 74-68 at Virginia Tech. Now, I'm going to say, the Virginia fans I know are have basically given up on the team after one loss, after a 7-game winning streak, which is kind of funny. But this was a game that Virginia Tech desperately needed to win and did. Held serve on their home court. Tech only had this game and the game at Duke in a couple of weeks as their last two chances to get quad one wins. A Tech team that started the season and was ranked in the top 25 at the end of non-conference play, and then was 2-8 in a 10-game stretch going into Saturday in the ACC. A team, though, that is better than that record reflects, and they showed it on Saturday. But it was a 74-68 final, and Virginia was just a couple of plays away. Couple of missed dunks. The one early in the game that was taken away from Isaac McNeely, a missed dunk then by Armand Franklin on a breakaway. A couple of missed free throws, here and there. I mean, there were lots of little ways Virginia could have made this game much more interesting. And Tech played well and won by 6. I don't know that you throw the baby out with the bathwater here, but there were some things. There's certainly some things, even if Virginia had pulled this one out, that you'd say Tony Bennett would need to work on. One, the defense has not been living up to the hype of what you'd expect from a Tony Bennett team. And it's really been the case all season. When I say that, it's all relative too. Virginia in the KenPom.com efficiency rankings ranks 26 nationally in defense. It's just good Virginia teams tend to rank in the top 10. So 26, which out of 363 teams still puts you well within the top 10% nationally. It's not what Virginia fans are used to. Virginia coaches are used to. Virginia players are used to. And it's making me wonder. I opined on this on Saturday after the game that maybe the small ball lineup is kind of run its course. We'll see. I don't want to be throwing baby out with bathwater here, but Ben Vanderplas is a 6'8" starting 5, has been the last several games. The last 2 games, Syracuse game, the Jesse Edwards had his way a bit. I mean, only 14 points, but 5 of 8 shooting, was kicking the ball around to his shooters who just weren't making shots. And that's why Syracuse lost that game. Virginia Tech made its shots when Justin Mutz was able to spin it out. He had 17 points on 7-11 shooting when he didn't spin it out. And then he had 8 assists when he did. And the fact that Virginia's got to double the post, a good post, when the ball gets in there and Vanderplas is undersized. It's weird to say 6'8" is undersized, but in basketball that's the case. That's what gets the ball moving around the perimeter, and when teams can get shots, they can knock them down. That can be a problem. When I did some math on this, let's see, I'm in the wrong column here. I want to make sure to get the column because I'm using some of my notes here, just my notes from the stories on the website. I did the math, and let's see if I can. Yeah, I'm pulling it up right here. Let's see, the 5 observations column is what I was going to look for there. Virginia Tech scored 74 points on 63 possessions. It was still a Virginia-paced game. 4 of Virginia's last 5 opponents have scored over a point per possession. And that dates back to Virginia's win over Virginia Tech a couple weeks ago in Charlottesville. Over that span of 5 games, Virginia is allowing 1.031 points per possession. This is a team that on the season, in the ACC at least, is averaging allowing 0.988. So that's up a little bit. 5 points per 100 possessions in a 60 possession game. That's what typically Virginia plays. That's an extra 3 points per game that Virginia is allowing with this Vanderplas small ball lineup. Caden Shedrick did not play in this game, and he's not playing a lot lately. When I look back at the numbers there, I'm gonna be flipping back and forth here. Shedrick was a healthy scratch. Tony Bennett confirmed that after the game with reporters. He started the first 14 games, and I want to write more in depth about this today too. This is another one I'm writing more today. But 3.5 weeks ago, I had written a column about how he was getting the unfair shake from ACC officials, in my opinion, and how Tony Bennett needed to go to bat for him a little bit more. At that time, when I pulled from that column, Shedrick was leading the ACC in box plus minus, which is basically a reflection of how your team performs when you're on the floor overall, not just your points and your rebounds and your counting numbers, but how your team performs when you're on the floor. He led the ACC in box plus minus. He was the best player in the ACC relative to how his team performs when he's in the game. He also led the ACC in defensive box plus minus, which is not a surprise. That's where his advantage would be most pronounced. Also led the ACC in defensive rating, and he ranked second at that time in block percentage and fourth in player efficiency rating. He's fallen out of all those because of late he's not getting minutes. He's played just 38 minutes in Virginia's last 6 games, and again he was a healthy scratch against Virginia Tech. In this stretch, Virginia is at the start of this stretch. Virginia was playing better offense with Vanderplas in there at the 5, but now they're not playing better offense, and I'll get to that point here. Let's see. So Vanderplas had 0 points in the loss at Virginia Tech, 0 of 4 shooting, 0 of 3 from 3. He played 29 minutes and did not score. And over his past 4 games now, he's averaging 4.3 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2.8 assists a game, shooting 31.8% from the floor. He's not doing what he had been doing offensively. And defensively, well, excuse me. So I wanted to defensively, Virginia's not playing as well. But the first 5 times out with Vanderplas as the lead guy at the 5 spot, Virginia was averaging 1.217 points per possession. That's a number that, if it was a season-long number, would lead the NCAA. So for the first 5 games that he was in this position at the starting 5 and getting the minutes of a starting 5, Virginia was one of the best teams in the country offensively from an efficiency standpoint. But last week, the win over Syracuse, the loss to Virginia Tech, Virginia averaged just 1.063 points per possession. That's a lot lower. That would rank somewhere in the 80s, 90s or so nationally. That's not an NCAA tournament profile for a Virginia team. 3-point shooting of late in the past 6 games going into Saturday, Virginia was shooting 41.4%. That's a reflection of how the offense had more openings because Vanderplas can stretch the floor. Virginia was 6 of 18, 33.3% in the loss at Virginia Tech. And what was done well by Virginia Tech, and teams, coaches and thus teams will copy what other teams do well and have success with until you can prove that you can adjust to that. But what they did well was they basically packed the lane. It was almost like they threw the pack line defense back at Virginia. They clogged the lane. Virginia still got 27 field goal attempts at the rim, layups or dunks, but only made 15 of them. It's 55.5%, 55.6% actually. And if you're not making the shots you need to make at the rim, and you're taking a lot at the rim, and then you're not making your threes, it's going to be harder to win the game, especially when you're not playing as good on the defensive end. Also, in another reflection of how that's the case, Virginia's second in the country. This is an impressive number. Virginia ranks second in the country, according to KenPom.com, in terms of the percentage of made field goals that are assisted. On the season, it's 67.5%. Virginia on Saturday, just 14 assists on 25 made field goals, 56%. Too much one-on-one ball because the shooters weren't making shots. And because the ball wasn't flowing, because Tech was packing things in and making Virginia, have to work a little harder for their shots. And so I'm suggesting that perhaps an adjustment may be in order, and we'll see. Tony Bennett plays things very close to his vest, as that saying goes. All he's willing to concede is guys need to be ready, and we'll see, and matchups determine things, et cetera, et cetera. Virginia, I'm going to do a deeper dive again. We'll see how that works in terms of what we find out, lineup versus lineup. But it looks like to me Virginia is probably going to make some more adjustments. I'm not suggesting put Vanderplas on the bench and not play him like Shedrick hasn't been playing lately. I would just suggest maybe Vanderplas could be shifting back to his 6-man role. He and Isaac McNeely, the freshman guard, could be shifting back. Well, McNeely's already in a 6-man role, so to speak, as the first guard off the bench, but at the least, Caden Shedrick gets what Vanderplas had been getting in terms of minutes, along with Ryan Dunn, and that could be sort of your 8-man rotation. Anyway, there some change seems to be in order, and we'll look more at that. Let's see. Speaking of McNeely, parking break is still on. Something I wrote about on Saturday postgame. That statement alludes to something Tony Bennett had said before the first win over Syracuse at home back January 7th. So that's right about a month ago. Before that one, Tony said he told McNeely, the freshman shooter, he's brought in to be a sharpshooter, that he needed to take the parking brake off and be more involved in the offense, shooting the ball wise. And that game, he had 12 points. The Syracuse game, the 73-66 win, McNeely had 12 points, 4-7 from 3. You think, hey, he took the parking brake off. I did some accounting here. He had, so on Saturday, 3 of 4 from the floor, 8 points, 2 of 2 from 3. Those are efficient numbers. But since the parking brake got taken off, McNeely's averaging 8.8 points a game, 54.5% shooting from the floor, 58.1% from 3. But he's averaging 5.5 attempts per game. Before he was advised to take the parking brake off, McNeely was averaging 5.1 shot attempts per game. The parking brake is pretty much still on. He's just making a higher percentage of his shots. So Virginia is going to be better if McNeely is shooting more, because the penetration by the guards, Beekman and Clark, getting out to the open shooters, they need to get the ball to the open shooters, and the open shooters, they need to shoot the shots. And McNeely is still a little reluctant to do so. He's a freshman playing with a bunch of experienced guys, and he needs to forget that. Take the scab off. He's not a freshman anymore. It's February in your first season. You're not a freshman anymore. Good trend for Jaden Gardner. Even in the loss, 20 points, 10 rebounds, and I had been writing. This is what I do. I write about things and give my thoughts, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right. I had been writing as of 3 games ago that the emergence of Ryan Dunn, previously aforementioned there, the 6'8" freshman, was that Dunn seemed like he was ready to take the starting 4 position. And he had been getting more minutes than Gardner over a 3-game stretch prior to me writing about that. Gardner, it may be coincidence. I don't think so. Not that I wrote about it, just that he felt the heat from Ryan Dunn and how well he was playing. And Gardner's last 3 has really stepped up. He's playing like the guy that was the leading scorer and rebounder on last year's Virginia team. He had 20 and 10 again in the loss at Virginia Tech. In his last 3, he's averaging 17.7 points, 8.0 rebounds. He's shooting 59.5% from the floor. And because he's emerged in that way, reemerged in that way, Ryan Dunn in his last 3 has logged a total of just 34 minutes. He'd been averaging 23.3 minutes a game before that stretch, the last stretch of 3 games, now averaging 11.3 minutes per game his last 3 games. So, it's one of those ebbs and flows in the course of a season, but it's a good one for Virginia in this respect. Jaden Gardner has been very productive, especially when we've not seen Ben Vanderplas be as productive. And Armand Franklin struggled on Saturday, 6 points on 2 of 9 shooting in the loss. Jaden Gardner stepping up. So kind of want to see these guys all play, reasonably well at the same time. That's been one issue, and it's an issue for a lot of teams, consistency in that respect. But Jaden Gardner has been very productive of late, so that's definitely a good thing for Virginia basketball. I want to talk real quick some Virginia football news, and we'll talk some more tomorrow about this too. Nick Jackson, middle linebacker, 3-time All-ACC selection, second team the last couple of years, third team 3 years ago. He had entered the transfer portal on December 11th, but had not committed anywhere else. In fact, then enrolled for the spring semester at Virginia. That gave Virginia fans and even Coach Tony Elliott a thought that, hey, maybe the kid is going to stay. We got the incumbency advantage. The fact that he's at least enrolled. He can't go play. He can't practice with someone else in the spring. So that's going to make him less valuable if he goes somewhere else. So maybe that's a good sign for Virginia. And it didn't turn out that way. On Sunday, yesterday, as I'm recording this, Nick Jackson announcing on Twitter that his days in Virginia, his days in Charlottesville are done. He had visited Iowa over the weekend. Still no commitment as of me recording this anywhere. He's also visited Auburn, and we'll figure out where he might land. At this point, because he can't practice in the spring with anybody, there's no rush for him to make a commitment, except for if a desired program, his desired program, may put pressure on him just to commit in terms of their roster numbers and scholarship numbers. But Jackson, he's made it clear he's not coming back to Virginia. So this is huge bad news for Virginia football. He led Virginia in tackles last year, as he has the last couple of years. 104 tackles last year, 626 snaps, both leading the linebackers, both the tackles number leading the unit. He also had 4 quarterback hurries, 5 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 pass breakups. Very versatile guy. He help you in pass coverage as well from the middle linebacker spot. His 73.5 Pro Football Focus grade was third among Virginia guys who logged enough snaps to really matter. So this is, and the thing is, Tony Elliott had addressed this last week at his that odd press conference that was held on signing day, when Virginia, in fact, didn't actually add any prep recruits on signing day last week, sticking with the 19 that had signed back in December, not for lack of effort. It was actually effort to try to add some guys, just couldn't get anybody to sign. But Elliott had addressed it, saying, "Hey, at the time when before Jackson had made his feelings known and his official position known, Elliott noted that he'd been named a team captain again this year by his teammates. It's not going to work out so well. Then talked about, though, if Jackson were to leave, how Elliott was trying to put a positive spin on how he felt about the linebacker unit without Jackson, if that was going to be the case. He said he felt good about the return of Josh Ahern, who will be a 5th-year senior next year. Ahern himself had not put himself in the portal, but had made it clear behind the scenes that he was thinking about the portal, and then decided to stay. Ahern is no Jackson, though. He had 240 snaps last year, 24 tackles. So that's 1 tackle every 10 snaps. Jackson averaged 1 tackle roughly every 6 snaps. And Ahern, in 4 years of Virginia, his highest Pro Football Focus grade was the grade he got last year, just 56.1, middling numbers there. Other than that, then, after his 240 snaps at the linebacker position, you've got Hunter Stewart, who played 79 snaps last year. You got Stevie Bracey, 28 snaps last year. Trey McDonald, 6 snaps last year. And that said, Elliott was trying to sell that last week, because I've got confidence in the depth in that room. That's, he's selling you something there. And you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I usually don't. So as far as that goes, tomorrow we'll do another podcast. We'll talk about the preview that I'll write tonight on the NC State game. I'll throw in some Virginia Tech too. They play Wednesday night with Boston College. Tech lost at Boston College up in Chestnut Hill back in December, and can't afford a hiccup in this one. You got to build on that win with Virginia. So we'll talk about the Tech game too, coming up on Wednesday. I'll also talk more about a column I wrote today, and I would advise you, ask you, please, beg you to read the column. The title is "Carla Williams Wanted a Teardown. She and Tony Elliott need to be made to own it." It's on the website right now, AugustaFreePress.com. I'll talk more in depth about that tomorrow, and kind of break down where things are from the standpoint of lots of things within Virginia football as we're getting closer and closer to spring practice for UVA. So, well, thank you for your time listening and or watching today. If you have any questions for me, any comments, anything else, topics you want me to address about UVA football or otherwise, feel free to email me at chris@AugustaFreePress.com.